Hey guys, just wanted to do hopefully a quick video on kind of like a state of the collection, some of my favorite watches. So I'll start with this. This was my first like nice watch and it was given to me by a family friend. So it's kind of always been with me since then, and it's a Seiko Quartz two-tone, as you can see. It's kind of probably from the 80s or something. Then the family friend probably gave it to me in the 90s, so yeah, it's definitely a bit outdated, but it's a really nice watch all the same. It kind of has the Patek kind of aesthetic, and great watch because it's a quartz. It has 3 time zones, 2 24-hour time zones, and then a 12-hour local that drives the date. And so would have been a great watch for somebody kind of working and traveling or doing business overseas or whatever at the time. So and the next watch is something I got as a teenager, probably around the age of 15 or so, maybe a bit younger, and something just caught my eye in a jewelry store, and I didn't know at the time it's a copy of a Breitling. I shouldn't say copy, but it's like almost exactly the same as a Breitling model called the Airborne, from around that time, I guess the early 90s or so. But this is a cool watch in its own right. It's got a pointer date. It's got another time zone, which is also an alarm. It's a 12-hour function, and 30-minute chronograph, and the seconds for the watch, local time. And I have the battery out because I don't really wear it, and it's in such good condition. I never really wore it that much, and so I'm kind of lucky that I didn't, because it's a pretty cool watch. It's not really worth it very much or very collectible, but it's kind of a cool example of a cool watch. And I found another one on eBay, so I got like there's like a cheap eBay one. You can see the seconds hand. This is running, so I do wear this every once in a while, but oh, the chronograph's running too. But yeah, so they're cool watches. I picked this one up cheap on eBay. Sometimes I'll keep it searching. So just in case you're curious, it's a 7T34 movement watch. I can't remember the codes. They're like 0800 or something like that, or 8A. I can't remember, but yeah, there's a few different ones. They have these have dot indices, but some have Roman. I have one that's has Arabic numerals too, and check that out. If you search Breitling Airborne, you'll come up with a watch similar to these. So, but yeah, this was kind of like my middle phase of collecting, where I was still into it, but I was kind of, my tastes were changing. And you can see, well, actually I'll throw it on just for fun. It's about a 42 or a 40, yeah, 42.5 millimeter watch. So it's bigger than the ones I actually wear now, but it's really nice and thin because it's quartz. It's, you know, it does have that kind of chunky bezel, but I think all in all, it's only about 11, if that, 11 millimeters or so. Because it's just a quartz, you know, thin quartz. It's not as complicated as it looks. It's just a computer, but so I guess chronologically after that, this was one. Well, it doesn't matter if it's chronological. This is a watch I built myself out of, you can see it doesn't look great, but I got a case, yeah, like a whole case that comes without a dial, but it has, and I just opted for a display back, and in here is a ETA 2801, so it's a manual. You can see there's no rotor, no date, very, very basic. It's kind of like a 2824, but it's the most basic variant of that. It's almost like a student watch, because you can see like everything you see is pretty much all the parts that are in it. So I got a new old stock 2801 for really cheap, and then I got some kind of like a gilt railroad dial. So this is kind of like an homage, I guess, to well, it's supposed to be like a Bond watch, kind of the super old Submariner. And it's a wind down, it's manual, so that's kind of a bummer. So that's part of the reason I don't wear it that much, and it was kind of just like a fun project. But yeah, it's pretty good. Like the whole thing was probably only cost me a couple $100 to do, and it was a lot of fun. Kind of pretended to be a watchmaker for a couple weeks, so not weeks, but you know, you have to wait for the parts and pick them all out. So this one I got really recently. It's a Luminox. I think this is the 7051. They call it a ladies watch, which is kind of weird because it's 38 millimeters and it's a military watch. But I've always kind of liked Luminox a little bit, but they always had like really big watches, and they're kind of, some of them are obnoxious in my opinion, like overly. They don't have to be that over the top with them, I don't think, but you know, they're not expensive. They're made of plastic basically, but they're 200-meter divers, and they have tritium luminous material. They're tubes, and they do work really well. I probably won't do a lume shot. It's not like impressive how bright it is, but it always is glowing, so it's perfect. It doesn't fade, you know what I mean? It's not bright and then fades, it just always glows. So if you're in the dark, you before your eyes adjust, you'll even be able to read it instantly. So it is really cool. That's the main feature I kind of got it for, because you know, it has like, it's a pretty aggressive style. I don't wear, like, I'm not in the military, I don't wear like tactical watches, but it is really useful just in that it's super light. I like this size. I don't think it needs to be any bigger than this. This is a 38 millimeter, and it's nice and thin. It's like you will forget that you're wearing it. It's that light. It's on, actually, I should say this too. These are the best straps. I don't like NATO's very much, but the best straps I've found are these. It's called Nick Mankey, Mankey, and he'll custom make them to length, and they're stretchy, and the good part is it doubles up here, so it's like a bit more substantial, and it also doesn't pass under, which in some ways I guess does detract from the use of the NATO, which will keep the watch on if it pops off of one, because it's through both at the same time against your wrist. So but with this, it's kind of just like a regular bracelet. If this comes off, the whole thing comes apart. Whereas with the NATO, that's all the way through. Even if one pops off, it'll just still be loose, but it'd still be on your wrist with one spring bar, if that makes sense. So that's, I guess, the only thing against this. But I mean, you know, with modern spring bars and like, you know, if you're doing something that extreme, you're not going to be wearing that valuable of a watch. So I guess if you're in the military, it's better to have a NATO strap, but I don't think they even use NATO straps that much anyway. So, but anyway, so that's my ramble now. I know I'm really going for a long video. And then this is a GShock. It's like pretty much the standard. It's non-solar, just pretty much your standard GShock, but it's the kind of the blackout, but it has the red on the inside of the band under the watch, and it's kind of a couple of accents, but yeah, it's just like kind of a blackout. I don't know why I got the blackout. I think it's just a bit nicer than I know. It looks, well, I shouldn't say, it's just my opinion, but it doesn't look as much like a cheesy watch, I guess. I don't know, maybe I should edit that out. No, I'm just kidding. So, and then as you'll probably see, my favorite brand is Rolex, and I started off with the Deep Sea, but it's way too big, and it was before I kind of knew my preferences, but I eventually basically traded it for this, which is the SeaDweller 4000 ceramic. So it's the 116600, and great watch. Like it's very modern. I like the modern ones because a few things. The movement is a bit upgraded, which, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's a bonus. And it has the ceramic bezels that they are a bit glossy, admittedly, but they hold up to wear really well, and they always look good. So you can not worry as much about just wearing them day to day and not having them scratch up like the old aluminum bezels, which are great too. And you can get new ones, or you can just beat them up. I'm not into the patinaed look as much, but maybe I'm just fussy. But anyway, yeah, so this is a great watch. It has all the upgrades, the ceramic, the movement, and of course the bracelet. The bracelet has the feature of being able to just slide to adjust. So instead of popping out with the tool, you can just instantly do it on the go. And that's like probably the best feature, if I'm honest, that I use the most, because your wrist does change a lot, and I do live in a place where there are more extreme temperature changes, and it makes a big difference. So this is what the newest SeaDweller is 43 millimeters. This is still the 40 millimeter size, which I much prefer. The one downside is that this is a heavy duty dive watch, so they made it pretty thick. So it's not as, I'm kind of like exaggerating it. It does sit pretty well because there's a bit of an indent like between your two wrist bones, and the watch does sit a little bit flush. So even though it has if you exaggerate, it has a big case back, but it kind of will sit into your wrist and kind of wear pretty well. But it is thick, like it's 15 millimeters. So anyway, there's no perfect watch, but this would be great if it were a bit thinner. Because it also has, as you can see, you probably know, all of the graduations too, which I like. Even though it's a bit weird that they're about half the length, because the standard Submariner, it goes to 15 and then it stops and then they get smaller. So just kind of a quirky feature. It also has a matte dial instead of a gloss dial, so it takes a bit of getting used to too, because it's kind of a throwback. But I think I guess they justify it because it is slightly more legible, I think, if it's matte instead of a sunburst or gloss, high gloss or something. And then this is the Hulk, the 116610 LV. And it's just basically a regular Submariner date, but it's in a green color, and I have to say it's probably my favorite. It just got a lot of character with the sunburst dial, and it's a very interesting shade of green, which I don't have a good camera or good lighting, but you'll probably want to look around at other videos to really see what it is. But it's a surprising green when you see it. I had tried it on a long time ago, and I remember liking it, but I had never tried on another one before I bought this, and it was like through the mail, so I didn't really try it on again. I knew I liked it, but I was kind of surprised too, because it's a very it's almost like a pale, it's not pale, I don't know, it's almost like a pastel-y, like light green, which it takes a bit of getting used to, because I thought it was a bit more of a true green. But anyway, it's great though. I love it now. I wouldn't want it to be a forest green or a regular green. I've fallen in love with the green, but it is a bit strange, but I think that's part of its charm, that it's like kind of weird, but it is a beautiful watch. And then the last ones are pretty much twins, like these, like the Seikos. A GMT Master 2 and the Explorer 2, the 16570 and the 16710. So this one was actually born a Coke, and I have the Coke bezel and the black bezel, and that's one of the best things about this watch. It's really like having three watches in one. The bezels are a couple $100 American, and for a new old stock bezel, and it's like gives you another watch. So it's a huge feature of this watch, I must say. I had it on the black for a long time, actually, because I was almost like, I don't have a regular Submariner. And the best things about these watches, these two, or these generation, is they're really nice and slim, and they have smaller cases, as I'm sure you know. Like they're before the super cases came in. I'd say both of these are super cases. Maybe I'll just do this quickly. They have different cases, and the SeaDweller I do prefer, because if you look at the lugs, it's slimmer and there's a shorter lug to lug, and it just makes us more of a sleek look than this, which is, you know, when you first get it, if you take away the bracelet, it's almost a square, you know. So it takes some getting used to. I do love the super case now, but I didn't for a long time, and I had the old SeaDweller, the 16600, which I really liked. Same thing, it had it has a big strong case, but it's gotten more tapered lugs, where this is like very square, and especially in pictures, as you get used to it, it does become kind of sleek, and it is pretty good at only about 12 millimeters. It's on the thicker side of like comfortable watches. I that's one pet peeve, is when they get too big. That 15 is pretty much the max, and I'll talk with the Sinn is about 15 too, but that's a chronograph, so it kind of gets away with it a bit. But yeah, anyway, so I do like the sleek design of this, even though these are both what they call super cases, which just means it's got kind of like square, chunkier lugs than the older ones. I think has a better case design than this. If the Submariner had gotten these lines and was as thin, I think it would have been better than the super case. But anyway, like I said, I have grown to appreciate the super case also in the Submariner. But these, you can see they're really slim, and of course these are both used. I got them both used, and they have been polished, but you can really tell that they used to be much like sleeker. And they're also thinner. They're only, I don't know the exact like fractions of a millimeter that they differ from in thickness, but just the way they wear, there's a very big difference. This is like a real 40 millimeter sleek watch that it just hugs the wrist a bit more. I'm not sure if there's more of a curve, but I think so, because the new super cases are pretty flat, whereas it just seems there's a bit more of a curve to these watches. And I think the case back was, and these are only 100 meters, so maybe the Submariner, I don't know if the Submariner of these years was the exact same case back. It probably has a beefier one, so these are just a little bit sleeker, and they're my favorite for that reason. I don't have a regular Submariner of these days, which I'd love, like a no date, because it's just, I think this case size is just perfect. And of course I don't need the extra functionality of the SeaDweller to justify the thickness. So really my basic watch should probably be just a regular Submariner of these days. Just because, and the reason I say that is because I just love how they wear so much. So that's why I have two of these. They're basically twins, but you can see that it's such a different watch, and because of the metal bezel, this becomes like very casual, very nonchalant. Nobody really seems to notice this watch very much. Just looks like it almost looks like it could be a Timex or something, you know what I mean? It's just like a regular watch, nothing special about it. But of course, when you look at it closely and you handle it and you own it, you appreciate the quality of it. But other than that, it doesn't say anything much. It's like just like a casual watch that you would wear anywhere, going to work or wearing jeans or whatever. Same with this, but of course this has a very you know, I almost have to say cliche appearance, just because it's been copied so much, and it's just very known as a Rolex watch. It kind of pops out a bit more, which I do. It's a double-edged sword, so you know, So anyway, I don't really have to say any more than that, but I just love the watch. That's why I got it. It's not to go around saying like, look, this is a Rolex, you know. They just hit a home run with this design. So I really appreciate it. I just got the service, just got it back. I put it back on the Pepsi because I know, I think these are my favorite watches, the Rolexes, and they're instead of having a bunch of different types of watches, like, you know, different brands and different like, you know, purposes for the watches, I have pretty much, they're all the same, but they just kind of have different colors, and that for me is more satisfying for some reason, I guess. So the last one, for no reason, is oh, it's changing. See, that's one of the things with the 7750, but is this Sinn, and this is a great watch. This is a watch, could be your only watch. It is a little bit thick, but it does a really good job of not seeming that thick, and it's not all that thick. It's only about 15, I think it's 14.5, and that's with the dome, and the crystal doesn't really get in your way. It doesn't make it seem like a thick watch the way that if it were the whole thickness, but all, you know, metal, right? So it doesn't seem that it wears as high on the wrist as it actually does, because part of it's just the plexiglass. So but yeah, this is like a Flieger style chronograph. For some reason has a dive bezel. Well, no, it's just a 60-minute bezel, so it gives you another way to time and increment. But yeah, 200 meters water resistance. It's a 41 millimeter, and this one has the matte finish on it, and I like that. I always like the 103. Sorry, I should say it's a Sinn 103. And I always like them, but I'm not a big fan of the polish, because it doesn't seem to make sense, because it's such a utilitarian watch that the high polish never made sense to me. But I think it's just, that's what they used to do, so that's what the classic ones always have. But yeah, not too much to say about this. Is an automatic chronograph, 7750 movement in it, 200 meters of water resistance, and really high specs, and a bunch of things like anti-magnetism, you know, low pressure, high pressure, temperature, all that type of stuff. It has high specs. I think probably a lot of the 7750s do, but I think they go above and beyond to make sure, you know, everything, all the bases are covered from, so it's not like a base, it's not like the most basic 7750 for sure. I think they probably either get higher grades that are already good enough, or they change out some parts or adjust them a bit. So definitely a lot of quality for your money in Sinn. I think they're the real deal. So I'd really like a EZM 3 or 3F too. Those are really nice divers that are just plain and utilitarian and just work really made well. That's actually why I know, like, Rolex gets, I don't know, gets a lot, well, everybody has different opinions about it, but they're so high quality. I've never had an issue with them. Like, I've had so many different brands, and all of these ones have been good, like, that aren't Rolex pretty much, but I've had a lot of other brands, like, well, I won't name them because there's no point, but you know, that are supposed to be really high quality, and I almost always have some issues with them. But Rolex just really, you know, they're you'd have to say they're overpriced, because they are, but at the same time, they're kind of worth it. I feel, anyway. So yeah, that's my video. Hopefully it was some use. The only reason I really make these is because whenever I'm interested in a watch, I try to watch every video available, and so I was hoping that somebody could get some use out of that, or just for entertainment, I guess. Anyway, see you guys next time.